In the world of 1911s, the pinnacle among collectors is a 1911 of high quality that is made from Damascus steel. At that pinnacle, the most impressive is to have one where the upper and the lower is made from Damascus steel. Today we're going to talk about two pistols like that, called the Eggerling Bespoke pistols, created in 2022 and works of art in the world of firearms. Today we're going to share the making of the Eggerling Bespoke pistols. This is a really large project that started years ago, and the process originated from receiving a large billet of Damascus material from Robert Eggerling. And one of the things that may not be obvious is that the scale of the material that you need to make a pistol is very, very large. Usually in Damascus, you need small, thin blade pieces that are made into knives, but to make a pistol, you need very large blocks. And in this case, and it's been the only instance where we had a block of steel which was large enough to make both lowers and uppers for a 1911.
Eggerling Bespoke will sit in a special place in the Cabot lexicon for years to come. It was the first time that we had billets large enough from Robert Eggerling to be able to produce a full frame and slide pistol, and we weren't able to produce just one. We had two pistols from the material that Robert provided. Eggerling Bespoke was completed in 2022, and honestly, it's a crown achievement for Cabot and for Robert Eggerling based on the size of the billet, the material, the finish, everything. And this is one of those projects that when we first got the material, we knew there was something special, but we weren't quite sure that what was going to come out of it. So we went with the name Bespoke because these pistols were truly going to be custom created, and I don't know if we'll ever be able to do something like this again.
So in this material, we looked at it for a long time before we okay, we got to cut it because this is a once and done opportunity. It's rare to make a gun from artisan Damascus with just an upper. It's harder to make it with an upper and lower, but to make it with an upper and frame is really a unusual opportunity from an artisan Damascus perspective.
When the material for the bespoke pistols first showed up at Cabot, it left us speechless. It was just the most gorgeous material you'd ever seen, and there was so much of it. Now, when we get Damascus in, I never know what's going to show up. I have no idea what these guys are making in their shops, what they're building, what it's going to look like, or anything. So my first impression of it is always as just a done billet, sort of slapped down onto my desk. And this pattern was just unlike anything that we'd ever seen before. And the fact that there is so much of it in hand that we're able to really maximize it and get two complete frames and two complete slides out of it, just insane. The material for the bespoke pistols actually came to us in ideal conditions. The fact that these billets were almost right to our dimensions, straight from the blacksmith, it's sort of unheard of. We had to do a few things here and there to really map them out and make sure that we would not run into any shortage of materials in any areas, and get the most out of them. But absolutely one of the nicer sets of billets that we've had to work with in terms of just very consistent pattern all the way through, no angry, bark or crust of that billet to have to fight through and work through and shape up. Really, really, really solid welds all the way through it and good fusion.
Upon embarking on the build, we carefully took the material, to create 2 receivers and 2 slides. And because these are going to be very unique pistols, we serialized them, Bespoke 1 and Bespoke 2. The crafting of the pistols took place over the process of about 1 to 2 years. The materials we probably sat on for maybe another year before that, just envisioning how to proceed, how to make the most of it, and how to make sure we wouldn't mess it up. Because when you're cutting a unique piece of steel like this, you have one chance to do it right, one chance to finish it right, one chance to machine it. And if anything's gone wrong, the opportunity is absolutely wasted. And the rarity of the material, was obvious to us.
The sheer size of billet that we need to make 2 pistols, frames and slide from Damascus steel is something that is very specialized, and very, very few people in the world are even able to create billets to that size. Well, when you combine that with Robert Eggerling's technique, the fact that he's 87 years old and doing this in his own shop in the woods in Pennsylvania, make this really the moonshot of Damascus pistols that will ever be produced.
So the journey began, and to create 2 guns. Here are the 2 pistols. They're both right-handed 1911s, full size, 45 ACP, of course. And the creation of them were to create the gun, the uniqueness, very special cases for the guns, but also to do something for provenance that is new to the gun world, in creating NFTs to accompany each one of these, where they would be digitally part of the blockchain and exist along with the pistols in perpetuity for that next level of provenance, to combine the latest of provenance techniques and multimedia resources to this very, very special project.
Creating a slide out of Damascus material has its own challenges, but creating a frame from Damascus material, a serialized portion, right? Like a registered serialized portion, is extremely challenging. The amount of operations that we have into a lower of a 1911, there are far more opportunities for things to potentially go wrong with it. So needless to say, we were a little intimidated by making some frames, 2 frames, identical frames out of artisan Damascus. But, in this instance, like careful planning and, preparation of every operation that they were about to go into. And, it paid off.
In naming these pistols the Bespoke pistols, bespoke usually means to be made of, to be tailored. And of course, we're custom 1911 makers. But in many ways, this is an example of the ultimate custom 1911 tailor-made gun. So starting from absolutely scratch and turning a piece of blank material, which is art in itself, into the canvas for creating a museum-quality 1911.
Oftentimes after, we've passed along the finished parts from the machine shop over to the gunsmiths, our job is done essentially in the build. We get to sit back and watch the magic happen. In this instance, we did have the guns come back for a few little details. So if you look really closely, you'll notice that there's one small, slight distinguishing feature between the 2 otherwise identical guns. It's almost like having, identical twins and one of them's got a birthmark. We kind of wanted to do something very subtle to set the 2 pieces apart, so they sort of have their own unique identity. And on top of that, to show off like the complexity of that material underneath those amazing clear grips, one of the very last things that we did was, mill out some magazines so you could see the actual rounds in the magazine when it's loaded into the gun. I think, that was just a really cool detail as well. The color of the brass kind of pop some little accents in the finish of the guns and stuff too. And it's just it's those small details that sometimes come together last minute as that material speaks to you that really make that project come alive.
So when we were going through and finishing the guns, we knew that we had to treat them very, very special. And a traditional etch that's going to bring out the different layers of steel wasn't exactly what we wanted to do. So we found that going through and polishing all of the parts down to a 1-micron polish and then heat treating them to bring out those colors that we knew were buried inside the different types of steel he used was going to be the way to go. And a hand polish like that takes many, 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 many hours worth of work, but the result was unbelievable. And there's actually a little Easter egg buried because the steel is so consistent.
That set really responded well to high polish. So it was something that we knew it was the right thing to do. And despite it taking 2 or 3 weeks of dedicated polishing time, we think that the result was worth it there. That's a interesting one where you have a certain grip set in mind, or you kind of have a finished product in mind, and then when it's all said and done, you look at it and you go, there's no way we can put grips on this gun. This gun requires clear grips, they cannot be covered. So that was something where then we kind of got led down another rabbit hole where we're like, well, wouldn't it be cool if when the magazine's inserted, if you had a window where you could see the live rounds? So that was something that was not necessarily planned from the beginning. And after we saw the frames, we just knew it would be a sin to cover them up with any grips. Yeah, the trick to coloring those is being able to kind of predict where that color is going to go. That's one thing if you have an individual slide. You want to hit it once, that's great. You get really close on that color, you lock it in, you're happy with it. When you have 4 different parts, you have 2 slides and 2 frames that have to all share the exact same color, and you can't do them all at the same time, that's where it becomes tricky. So we actually ended up building an entire frame holding device so that we could do frames in the same space as that we could do the slides. So this was something that, we knew how to polish them and we knew how to bring the most out of them, but to do it to all of them so that they were all identical required a little bit of ingenuity.
For the bespoke pistols, we collaborated with master furniture maker Stephen Parker. Stephen creates museum quality cases, and in this case we needed something special for these guns. That process began with Steve finding beautiful Claro walnut that he hand cut, the bookmark, put together. If you take a look at the cases, you'll see the corners are a mastery of joinery work. The hardware inlay is exquisite. The internal section of the case is beautiful Claro walnut. The figure, which is really extraordinary. One design element that you'll see within that case is what we call our freedom fit. And these are 2 sections that hold the receiver of the gun and a separate section for the trigger of the gun that is our own iteration on how a gun can be stored and held in a case securely without moving around, but also amplifying the beautiful nature of the wood and the figure. I hope you've enjoyed this video with a little bit of a background on the making of the Eggerling Bespoke pistols. It was a project we take great pride in. If you liked the video, please hit subscribe and we'll bring more videos to you like this in the future.